Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Reish Ayin Aleph Seif Yud Aleph. The Mechaber is going to be talking about a case where you only have one case of wine. What do? Do you use it for Friday night? Do you use it for Shabbos morning? And possibly do you use it for Havdalah? So what is the halacha? So says the Mechaber Yud Aleph. Im ein lo ela kais echad. You only have one cup of wine, one glass of wine. Mekadesh bay belayla. You use it at night time for Friday night Kiddush, ve'eina toyem mimenu, and you don't drink from it, shelo yafki menu, that you shouldn't be poigem the kais. The problem is when you've got a kais shel bracha and you drink a little bit, then it makes it pogem. You can no longer use it, and therefore, if that's what you do, then you're not going to be able to use it for Shabbos morning. Ella sheifech mimenu lekais acher. You take your kais. You don't drink it, you pour into another kais. V'toyim yain shal kiddush me'akais hasheni. And from the second kais, you drink from the bracha, the kiddush wine that you just made kiddush on. And then the first kais, ulamacha mekadesh mashanisha b'kais rishon. And then tomorrow morning, on Shabbos morning, you can use what was left over from the kais rishon. Fine, that's what the Mechaber says. V'im lo hayabay ela revius b'tzimsum v'nechsam emenu b'layla. What if you've got a very limited amount of wine, and you've literally got a revius, which is pretty small. Yeah, it's a small amount of wine. And therefore, if you're going to do that on Friday night, you're not going to have what to drink on Shabbos morning. Therefore, says the Mechaber, you make Kiddush Friday night, you drink, we'll see, you got to drink a Moli Lugmov, and then you dilute the remaining wine to be mashlim to bring it up to a revius. V'hainu dafka kashi. Yes, in other words, what have we said? You've got very limited wine. You've got, let's say you're away for Shabbos, and you've got one, a little bit of grape juice. That's all you've got. So what do? Do you use this wine, grape juice, for Friday night or for Shabbos morning? So Mechaber says what you do is you pour it into a becher, and then don't drink from that becher on Friday night. Rather, pour it into a second case that it shouldn't become pogum. Drink from the second case, but the original wine you have not drunk from, and leave that till Shabbos morning. If that is less than a revius, i.e. because let's say you have only a revius per simsum to start with, a small amount, we'll see in a second exactly how much, and you drink a Moli Lugmov, and you've got a bit left, but you haven't got enough for a revius, and that's the shir that you need, so you need to add some water to it, to dilute it, the next morning, to pump it up, to make it to revius. That's what the Mechaber is saying. Now, V'hainu, says the Mechaber, Davka k'sheyeshlei kais acher lahavdalah. That's all assuming that you've got some more wine for Havdalah. She'im leichein mutav she'yanechen lahavdalah she'yev she'lopas. Because otherwise, if you only got a little bit of wine left over, you should use that for Havdalah, leave it for Havdalah, and don't use it for Kiddush. Because Kiddush, you've got the alternative of making Kiddush over bread. But that is not an option for Havdalah. Because otherwise, if you use it for Kiddush, then you're not going to have wine for Havdalah. What if you've got two cases? You've got two glasses of wine after you've diluted it. That's all you've got. So we've got three options. You've got Friday night Kiddush, you've got Shabbos morning Kiddush, and you've got Havdalah. So if you've got two cases of wine, how should you use them? Says the Mechaber, the first case you use for Friday night Kiddush, and the second case you use for Havdalah. And then you just don't make Kiddush in daytime. The Kiddush halayla odif, because Friday night Kiddush trumps Shabbos morning Kiddush. And therefore, if you only have two cases, you use it for Friday nights, and the second one for Havdalah. Okay. Says the Mechaber, says Mishnah Berurah, Sheifich menu. Again, we're talking about a situation where you've got only one glass of wine. So then, here, imagine this is your case of wine. You make Kiddush on Friday night. Don't drink it because then you're going to be poging the wine. So pour it into a second case, drink from that, and this, whatever's left over, you leave for Kiddush for the next day. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katan Nun, Sheifich menu kashir Moli Lugmav. You got to pour out some Moli Lugmav. That's how much you got to drink when you make Kiddush. Me'akos cheni. Magen Avraham hiskin adas ha'tosfos. The Magen Avraham, however, agrees with Tosfos. The koshel chayva tzarich lios hatiima dafka. mikosh yesh b'revius yain. In other words, the Magen Avraham is going to say, not like the Mechaber. The Mechaber says, you've got your initial case, you pour it into a second case, drink from the second case, and this is good to go for tomorrow. The Magen Avraham doesn't like that. What the Magen Avraham is going to say is actually pour out into a second case, drink from the original case, that's what you should be doing, and you can masakin the second case. How so? You can pour more grape juice, whatever, into it. That's what the Magen Avraham is going to say. It says, let's see it inside. Sif Kotin and Aleph, Me'akos Hasheni, Magen Avraham hiskim l'das ha'tosos, the kos shel chayva tzarech liyos hatim medavka mikos sheyesh b'revius yain. That you actually have got to drink from the Kiddush case where there was a revius of wine, Val kein hanochen sheyasekach, and therefore this is what you should do. Yishbech mitchile me'akos harishon l'toich kosech acher. First of all, you make Kiddush, then you pour into a second case. Make sure there's a revius yain in the original case. And drink from the original case. And then pour back from the second case into the first case. And that fixes, that remedies the first case. And therefore you can make Kiddush on it tomorrow morning. So long as there's revius of wine. Okay, so let me just summarize. What happens if you have very limited amounts of wine? The Mechaber says that you've got one glass of wine, you make Kiddush on it on Friday night, before you drink it, pour it into a second case, and then drink from the second case, and then tomorrow morning you can make Kiddush on the first case. So you have from a case which is not pogum. The Magen Avraham, and the Mishnah Berurah seems to side with that, says no, you've got to drink from the actual case you made Kiddush on, and this is what you should do. You make Kiddush on your one glass of wine. You pour away some, make sure you leave a moli lugmov, which is the minimum amount you've got to drink, and drink from the initial case shel Kiddush, and then you pour a bit more back into the second case. And then you pour from the second case where you just, and then back into this case, and then you've been masakin it. And therefore you can use that for tomorrow. That seems preferable. Say no?
Why is that not a form of problem? Pour it back into the first case?
Because that is how you're masakin it. By taking some fresh, undrunk from wine and adding it to what you drunk from, that is masakin it. Yeah, okay. So that's what you do. Nun base.
It's got to be more than the...
Yes, correct. Yeah, true. We'll see. So says the Mishnah Berurah Nun Beis, Mekadesh b'masha nishar, miloshen zeh mashma de Mekadesh b'zeh hakois gufo. You actually Mekadesh with that initial cup. V'after le'elbas if you'd call of the tzarech liyos hakois mole. We said it's got to be a full case. As we said, I think yesterday or the day before, zeh rak lemitzvah. If you haven't got a lot of wine, you've got a revius of wine, you've got a big becher, what can you do? So you make Kiddush if you haven't got a kais mole, so you just have to make do with that, with less. Zeh rak lemitzvah. Ve'ein ma'akiv emein lo. Or pashad im yesh lo kais acher cotton mizeh. If you've got a smaller becher, then tzarech lishmech hayayin l'seich kadesh yeh mole. Better to try and pour the wine into a smaller becher so that it's at least mole. Okay, revius b'tzimtzum. And then the Mechaber carried on and says, what if you've only got a revius b'tzimtzum? Says the Mishnah Berurah Nun Gimel, lav dafka revius b'tzimtzum, because we've just said, if you've got a revius b'tzimtzum, you've got a problem, because you've got to drink a moli lugmov, and then you've got to leave over a revius for the next day. So it means a revius plus moli lugmov. So ella hu adin afilim yesh lo yosim izeh, ella ta'achatimas moli lugmov lo yisha lo kashir revius. What it means is, after you've drunk the moli lugmov, a cheekful, you're left over with the revius. Ella d'nokat hachin revusa. It's coming to teach me a chiddush, ta'afilu bezeh yesh lo takona al yedei mezigas hamayim. The chiddush is that there is still a takana, and that is you add a bit of water, you dilute the wine. Sorry, I've jumped the line. We've got to be talking about a case where the wine is strong, because if you pour water into a weaker grape juice, then you're going to dilute it. There's nothing that you can't taste anything. Okay. Now, so that's the story so far. You've got one glass of wine and you're going to try and sort yourself out for Kiddush. Now the shaila is that you've only got one case for Havdalah as well. So things are really difficult. You've got one glass of wine, and you need it for Friday night Kiddush, Shabbos morning Kiddush, and Havdalah. What to do? Says the Mishnah Berurah. So if you've only got one choice, you should leave it for Havdalah. The Mechaber said. Why? Because on Friday night, if you can't, you make it over bread. Mashenken with Havdalah, you can't make Havdalah over bread. So if you've got the one glass of wine, then leave it for Havdalah. Says the Mishnah Berurah Nun Daled. V'hainu dafka koyad le'el shekasav d'chashiyesh le'keis echad mekadesh by belayla. V'ashmeina dahainu dafka. When you've got that's when you've got something for Havdalah. But if you haven't got for Havdalah, then you should use it for Havdalah. Says the Mishnah Berurah Nun Hey, mutav that you leave it for Havdalah. B'zeh ayri hashulchan aruch sha'akos hu shia mitzumtzum umuzug kvar. That we're talking about a situation where you've got literally one revius, it's diluted, you've got no option to add more water or to add a little bit, because otherwise that would be preferable. We're talking about a situation where you've got one revius of wine and there is option only to use it for Friday night Kiddush or Shabbos morning Kiddush or Havdalah, and the eighth is use it for Havdalah and make Kiddush on the bread on Friday night. Because if you could still dilute it, then you could use it for Friday night and then dilute it and use the rest for Havdalah, for Chanal. Okay, it's Tes Nunvav, Shianichela Havdalah. You should leave it for Havdalah. For Yesh Oimrim, the Kiddush Halayla Odif Havdalah. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, actually, although the Mechaber says leave over this one glass of wine for Havdalah, there are those who say better to use the glass of wine for Friday night. Why? Because you have got another eitzah. For Havdalah, use beer, use sheicha, use something else. The halakula alma mavdina nashichra, because everyone says you can make Havdalah on beer. For Kiddush HaShichra have a poskim osrim. But to make Kiddush on beer, many poskim say you can't do that. So therefore, if you've got one glass of wine, better, says the Mishnah Berurah, to use it for Friday night and make Havdalah on beer. For Gamal Apas Machmir Rabbeinu Tam. And even Rabbeinu Tam is not very happy with making Kiddush on Friday night on bread. For Lochein Afilu Havdalah Shehu Lahitzi Rabbi Midei Chevoson. Have I missed the line? Sorry, V'lochein Afilu B'Shachris, I keep doing that. V'lochein Afilu B'Shachris, and therefore even in the morning, Shabbos morning, which is a Kiddush, which is Drabanan, Tov Yosef Sheikadesh Al Yayin, Im Yesh Lo Sheich Al Havdalah. You've got one glass of wine, and it's Shabbos morning, and it's Havdalah. Use the wine for Shabbos morning, and use the Sheicha for Havdalah. Miu, Mashenogu LeKadesh Beis HaKnesses Gam LaHavdil. However, the minhag, what we do, let's say for example, you make they make Kiddush on Friday night in Shul, like we spoke about recently, and you've got for Havdalah, so now you've got another choice. Do I use that one glass of wine for Kiddush in Shul Friday night or for Havdalah? Imagine you're the Gabber in a Shul where they do this, and you've got a choice. I've got one little bit left of wine. Do I use it for Shabbos morning Kiddush, or for Friday night Kiddush in Shul after davening, or for Havdalah? So he says, definitely use it for Havdalah there, because the Friday night Kiddush in Shul is just a minhag. Okay, let's just finish off. The Kiddush Laila, Odif, Chudilel b'simen zeh sif gimel, ayin shom Mishnah Berurah, sif kotzen ches. Hamogen Avram hevi b'shem sheriken esagdoila, the toiv lekadesh al kois gadol. It's better to use a larger becher, sheishai ma'is hakois, the Kiddush hayom l'Havdalah, and then you leave over in our situation for Kiddush hayom, for the day Kiddush l'Havdalah. Hainu sheiskanenu b'chol pam shelo yeh pogum. Like we said, you can rectify it. You can be masak in the kois that it takes away the pogum status. V'yikach b'shachris v'Havdalah kois cotton me'akoidem, and you use a smaller kois kadesh yeh mole, that you're always making Kiddush on a full kois. Avolei Rabban fakuk b'zeh minhag. He questions this minhag. V'chein Amar Mordechai kaman. Maman, but he protests this because of Tov Yosef Lasos Kamin Hogenu. Okay, so let me just summarize. It's a bit complicated. What have we said? We said that you've got very limited wine. So the Mechaber says you've got very limited wine, you've only got one glass, and you want to use it for Friday night Kiddush and for Shabbos morning Kiddush. This is what you do. You take your becher, you make Havdalah. Before you drink anything, you pour it into a second kais, and you drink from that second kais, and then You've left your original kais untouched, you haven't drank from it, and you use that for tomorrow. Fine. The Mishnah Berurah brings the Magen Avram and says, no, you should actually drink from the kais shel Kiddush. So what you do is, you make Kiddush, you pour out a little bit, and you drink from the Kiddush cup. and then you pour back from there into the original cup to be masakin it. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. That's number one. Number two, what if you've only got one case and you've got to use it for Friday night Kiddush, Shabbos morning Kiddush, and for Havdalah? Which one trumps? So the Mechaber says, "V'hainu dafka sheish kos echad lahavdalah." Kos achad lahavdalah. Shem lo kein mutav she'anichen lahavdalah she'if shebepas. The Mechaber says, use the wine for Havdalah, and Friday night you can make Kiddush over bread. That's his suggestion. However, what the Mishnah Berurah brings is, importantly, that that's only true if you haven't got any sheikhar. If you've got beer, better to make Kiddush on the wine, and then you make Havdalah on the beer, which L'Kula Alma is okay. Seder? Okay. All right, we'll do that.